Well, as we feared and predicted back in January, anti-choice politicians in Congress and states have abandoned their promise to focus on jobs and the economy and instead have launched a war on women. Today, we'll give an update on the many battles we're fighting in Washington and the state capitals. And let's begin with Congress. So as a refresher, November's election had a devastating effect on the number of pro-choice lawmakers in Congress. In a huge shift, now there are 246 solidly anti-choice House members. You'll see that number on your screen. I'm sure you all know that one needs only 218 to pass a House vote, so they well exceed that threshold now. And in the Senate, which is a bit more moderate, we can still count on only 40 fully pro-choice senators for every vote. You'll see the numbers there on your screen. In 3 months, Congress has opened 5 major fronts in the war on women. First, the House has voted 3 times to dismantle the new health reform law, once to repeal it entirely and twice to defund it. And we believe there are more attacks to come. NARAL cares about this law because, although it has some distressing new restrictions on abortion, it has very good provisions for prenatal care and family planning, both of which are important to reproductive health. Second, Congress has moved an agenda we call Stupak on steroids. This consists of 2 bills, H.R. 3 and H.R. 358. More detail about the bill's provisions is on the slide in front of you, but in general, here are 3 main points to remember. First, both bills would effectively ban abortion coverage in the new health system, which is known as the exchange. Between about 25 and 30 million people are expected to get their insurance there. Second, one bill makes major changes to the tax code with the goal of discouraging people from buying plans that include abortion coverage. And third, one bill lets hospitals refuse to provide abortion care to women who will die without it. We learned yesterday that H.R. 3 will be on the House floor next week, and sadly, we don't have anywhere close to enough votes to defeat it. Third, anti-choice lawmakers have moved beyond even legal abortion and have aggressively attacked contraception this year. The House voted overwhelmingly this month to eliminate the country's only dedicated family planning program. It's known as Title X. Thankfully, that provision didn't prevail, but in the final budget deal struck this month, the program was cut by $17 million. This is especially unbelievable since even people who oppose legal abortion understand that the best way to prevent its need is by ensuring contraception is widely available. And by way of contrast, even at the height of the Gingrich years in 1995, when Bob Livingston tried to defund the family planning program, another vote that I lobbied, that vote failed at that time, 207 to 221. And that was no progressive House by any means. That's how much worse Congress has gotten on choice in just 15 years. Fourth, on the same theme of family planning, the House has twice tried to defund Planned Parenthood, the nation's most important provider of contraceptive services. You'll notice the surprising vote counts here. Congress is totally out of touch with Americans on this issue. Almost all the public uses and supports birth control. By comparison, this is interesting, we easily won a nearly identical vote just 1 Congress ago. This major swing came as a result of just 1 election cycle. Next, one very sad outcome of the budget deal that Congress reached this month was the reimposition of the D.C. abortion ban. Now, once again, Washington's own local elected officials are barred from deciding whether to use our own locally raised funds for abortion care. This is a decision every other state gets to make for itself. Briefly, one story to share with you about this. At just 1 local clinic, 28 women were scheduled for appointments the day after the ban was reimposed. These 28 women were left with no funding. So local charities scrambled to help. We all scrambled to help. But that's just 1 clinic and just 1 day. This war on women we're talking about today that's happening around us isn't abstract. It isn't hypothetical. It's very real, and real women are on the receiving end of these policies. Now let's move to the states. As a refresher, this is the slide we showed back in January. Here's the choice composition in the states as published in our book, Who Decides? In particular, note that 29 governors are anti-choice. That's up from 21 just last year. And in the bottom right-hand corner, you'll see that 15 state governments are fully anti-choice. By our definition, a state government means both houses of the legislature plus the governor. That means that in 15 states, there is absolutely no one who will stand between women and almost any attack on reproductive rights that you can imagine. By contrast, you'll see in the chart there, only 7 states are fully pro-choice. At this moment in time, we're tracking more than twice the number of anti-choice bills that we were tracking last year. Now, back in January, we expected to see the most activity in states in 5 major areas, and unfortunately, we were right. First, abortion coverage bans are laws that tell insurance companies they can't sell policies that include abortion as a basic benefit. And as a reminder, left to their own devices, insurance companies do cover abortion care. It's basically an industry standard. About 87% of plans on the market today do include this coverage. Now, frustrated by this fact, more and more anti-choice politicians are simply outlawing it. Many people don't know this, but before the federal health reform law passed last year, 5 states already had abortion coverage bans in force for their entire states. Then, since the federal health reform law, 9 states have enacted similar bans of varying breadth. Since some of these bans are overlapping, that means that as of today, a total of 11 states ban abortion coverage either statewide or in the new health system known as the exchange. And legislation in this area has been filed in nearly half the states nationwide this year. Now we'll show you 3 maps that illustrate the wave of abortion coverage bans I just described that we're seeing this session. First, this map shows states that had abortion coverage bans in force statewide before the federal health reform law was enacted. This map shows states that enacted some type of abortion coverage ban in the 13 months since the federal health reform law. And this map shows all the states with legislation pending in this area this year. You'll see that it covers more than half the country. The second trend we're fighting in the states is what we call Nebraska copycat bans. These are laws that ban abortion at 20 weeks and have almost no exceptions. Nebraska enacted the first one last year, and since then the trend has been spreading. 3 more states have already passed these bans this year. 15 states are considering them. And the National Right to Life Committee predicts that 5 more could be enacted into law this year alone. If so, that would mean almost 10 bans in just 2 legislative sessions. The original sponsor from Nebraska boasts that the law is intended to be a challenge to Roe v. Wade before the Supreme Court, which, as we all know, was made more hostile to choice by President Bush's appointments. Third, back in January, we expected to see high activity in the area of ultrasound mandates, and our fear has been realized, unfortunately. Ultrasound mandates are laws that force doctors to provide ultrasounds to women considering abortion, even if not medically necessary and the woman doesn't want one. Now, to be clear, NARAL's position is that every woman should have the services and information she wants and which is medically necessary. Unfortunately, these laws twist that concept and they require women to have sonograms, even against their will, even if the doctor recommends against it. Before this session, 21 states had some kind of ultrasound law on the books. This session, 14 states have 28 bills before them in this area, and Arizona has already enacted one. By comparison, last session we saw 9 bills on this issue, so we have 3 times as many this year. Fourth, this session we've seen a continued high level of activity on the topic of personhood. Now, personhood measures vary in their details, but typically they make pregnancy a legal person from the moment of conception. And if enacted, they would outlaw abortion in all cases, as well as most common forms of birth control, and could even have effects on in vitro fertilization and stem cell research. These proposals can take the form of either a ballot measure or state legislation. Some of you may recall that Colorado voters rejected a personhood measure twice in recent years. The umbrella group that's promoting them, it's called Personhood USA, claims activity in 50 states. This issue will be on the ballot as a referendum in Mississippi in November and is threatened for the Florida ballot next year. We're also fighting personhood legislation in 14 states this session. Finally, we're seeing a new trend, race and sex-based attacks. These are proposals that would forbid a doctor from providing abortion care if the doctor comes to believe that the woman is making the decision for reasons relating to sex or race. We're fighting bills on this topic in 5 states, and Arizona became the first state in U.S. history to enact one last month. Now, it hasn't gone unnoticed that the Arizona state government, which didn't seem particularly concerned about institutional racism against Hispanics when it enacted HB 1070 last year, now seems eager to declare itself concerned with racism when it comes to abortion. This particular legislative campaign is happening in tandem with billboards that are appearing across the country. They try to link the constitutional right to choose with racism, which we find particularly cynical and offensive. It's simply the same old anti-abortion agenda now cloaked in civil rights rhetoric. Our view is that if lawmakers had a sincere interest in addressing racism and sexism, there are a lot of ways to do that are legitimate. Attacking the right to choose is not among them. Now, if you can't read the billboards on your screen, the first is a drawing of President Obama and says, every 21 minutes our next possible leader is aborted. The second one at the bottom left says the most dangerous place for an African American is in the womb. And the third says black children are an endangered species. You can actually sponsor one of these billboards on the internet for $5,000. So that's a brief summary of what's happening in Congress and states at the mid-session point, and thank you so much for your time.